Alright everyone, welcome back to another video of Salesforce Makes Sense. This is Himanshu and we are going to continue our journey on our Apex Developer Masterclass, our Apex Developer curriculum. We have done a good chunk of deal, we have understood the basic, we have set up the foundation for a lot of things, but we'll continue on that same journey, on that same road, and now we'll start looking at operations and functions, right? So before jumping into this particular topic, I'll quickly show you we will be covering conditionals like for this particular phase of the videos or for this particular section or that module. We'll talk about conditionals, we'll talk about operators, we'll talk about collections a bit, and then we'll also talk about loops, right? So now that you understand, if I take you to Salesforce developer org and let me just open one of our variable and keywords, or let's just see method. Don't see any method available for all. So I believe these are some of the classes that we created recently, right? So let's just open employee and let's open manager, right? So if you see what we have done as of today is we have understood the very basic foundation of the blueprint that a class is. We have tried to understand simple keywords. We've started to understand access modifiers, extends, static keyword, instantiation, and all of this stuff, right? We've also understood what are class variables, what are member variables. We have talked about certain data types. We have talked about certain methods, right? We have talked about constructors. Now is the time to actually start using these methods and variables and seeing what can be done inside them and how, right? So to be able to write good methods, these are the four primary things that you need, right? You should know about conditionals, which are basically uh, taking decisions based on conditions, right? For example, uh, if this particular thing is true, do this particular thing. If X is true, do Y, right? Or if you have different conditions, you write nested if conditions. So we'll talk about all of that in detail, don't worry. That's the first thing. The second thing is you have a lot of conditions, right? You have a lot of filter logic. If this is true and this is true, or these three things are true and this is not true, only then do this particular thing. Those kind of things come under operator. So you should be able to understand how to use the and operator or the not operator in your code. The third thing is collections. So collections is something everyone should know and everyone should be very confident in. So we'll talk about list, sets, and maps. Okay, so these are the three collections we'll tackle and we'll try to understand all of this. And then finally, we'll also take a look at the for loop, how to write loops in Salesforce, right? There might be different ways of writing it, but we'll primarily tackle and target the for loops and probably just see one or two variations. All right, so without further ado, let's start with understanding conditionals in Apex. What I have here is a use case, right? We'll always do things with examples. We'll always do things with practical real-time examples, and as much as possible, I'll put in use cases any and every place possible because that's the best way to learn. And yes, here onwards, I believe you have been doing a lot of code with me, and I've seen a lot of people commenting the entire code and trying them out themselves, seeing the errors themselves, which is good. And I'll want you to continue this and do this for every use case that we talk about, right? Either if you're not able to do it on your own, do it with me, right? Or else if you are someone who has some idea about Salesforce development in Apex, go ahead and take this challenge and try to do it yourself and then just see the video. Okay, so we'll have a lot of use cases coming up for these four sections, and that will build up your base, the foundation and the confidence around those basics and foundation. And then we should be good to actually tackle real life problems by writing good Apex methods. Okay, great. So conditionals in Apex. So take a look at this particular example or this particular assignment we have in hand. Write a method that sends an alert based on the kind of user action. So if the user has made a purchase, send them an alert. If the user is a premium member, send them an alert but give them a coupon code also. The third one is if the user has signed up, right? He's a new user, send them an alert for a welcome bonus. Give them a welcome bonus. If the user has requested a refund, send them an alert for customer satisfaction survey. Okay. If the user has not done any of them, don't send any alerts. So if you see, a lot of if conditions are there. What does that mean? That means you have to take your decision based on certain criteria, and either this will happen or that will happen or none of this will happen. These are nothing but conditionals, right? So this is called conditionals, and this is how you can tackle conditionals in Apex by writing if clause or by writing the switch clause. How do you do that? Let me take you to an Apex class and we'll try to solve this use case or this assignment in hand and understand the if clause. So I'll just try to call this class conditionals in Apex. Okay. So as you know, we need methods. So I'll just create a method, and I hope now the method nomenclature is fine. I'll just say public static void handle if handle customer conditions, right? Or handle customer interactions. This is my method name and I've just saved it. Okay, let's save this class. All good. All right, let's come back here and try to see. The method says that sends an alert based on the kind of user action. So if you take a look at these particular cases, you need some input, right? You need to tell the system what has happened. So either the user has made a purchase, or you have to ensure what kind of user it is, or whether it is a guest user or a premium user, or whether they have done a refund or they've not done any of them. So you have to give this information to the system. How do you give this method this information? By creating method params, right? So you can first of all say string type of customer, right? This is something that will be fed as guest, premium, or regular, correct? So type of customer. Then you can have currency, right? So I'll just say decimal purchase amount. So that's my second input. That would basically tell me whether they have made a purchase or not. Okay. There can be a third variable, that is new. This will tell you whether the customer has signed up or not, right? So what do we have? We now see that, okay, we can understand whether a user has made a purchase or not by the purchase amount. Okay, just try to be with me here. If a user is a premium member, how to check? We can check by the type of customer. If the user has signed up, we can check by the is new customer. If this is true, then it will be a new customer. If they have requested a refund, right? So in case of a refund, let's just simply take one more parameter, decimal, or let's put another Boolean flag, refund requested. So if this is true, that means the customer has requested for a refund. Okay, and if the user has done none of them, don't send them any alerts. All right, perfect. So let's save this particular class. I have four variables. Okay, let's save it. Hope this saves up fine, and I hope you understand the four kind of variables that we've created. Correct. Now I want to take decisions, right? How do I take my decisions? By writing an if condition. So first of all, let's write this in English, and then I'll try to convert it into the Salesforce language. So if user made a purchase, send them an alert. Okay, so how do I say if the user has made a purchase? If I had to tell this in English to the system, what would I have said? I would say if purchase amount is greater than 0, send an alert. Is this true? Does this look fine in English? Yes, it does. Right? So how do I convert this into the if clause? I simply use the keyword if. And if you notice, it's a keyword, right? That's why it's highlighted in purple. It's not a regular text. See? So it's a keyword, which means it's a reserved keyword. So when you write if condition, you have to put brackets, the round brackets, the ones which are right above 9 and 0, right? So if, and then you put your curly braces, because you need to tell the system to execute this particular block if the above if condition is true. So this set of code will execute if this if condition is true, right? So why am I saying this is a block? Because it is surrounded by curly braces, correct? And you will write a set of statements inside it, correct? So here, if I have partially converted my code to Salesforce language. So now I'll keep my if purchase amount is greater than 0. I want to send an alert. So for alerts, let's simply debug or put a log inside our system. So I'll say system.debug. Congratulations, your purchase is successful. All right, let's save it. I know this will be erroneous because it's not Salesforce language. We are still understanding English language, something that we understand, and we'll slowly convert it into Salesforce language. Now I can get rid of this particular line because we have done a bit of refinement. The if condition is written inside it. This is the condition that you write. If this condition evaluates to true, only then it will go inside this particular block. Does that make sense? And if it goes inside, it will just log system.debug. It will print on your system, congratulations, your purchase is successful. All right. Now the only thing left is this particular conditional. You have to provide the condition in a language that Salesforce understands. So purchase amount. Do you have a variable that defines purchase amount? Yes, you do. So purchase amount is here. So I'll just replace this particular English language with the actual variable name. Okay. And is greater than. This is a operator. So how do you normally write in maths? You write greater than, right? You write greater than, less than, greater than, equal to, less than, equal to, not equal to, or this is also not equal to, or you write double equal to check whether it is the same or not, right? So all of these are operators. So if I have to write is greater than, how do I write it in maths? Like this, and that's it. Your if condition is ready. So the operators are very much similar to how you normally use in your mathematics, your plain simple general mathematics, right? If you had to say if the purchase amount is less than zero, then you would have just changed the operator. So if you now see, if I save this, it saves a fine, which means our if condition is perfectly fine. And if you read it now, how would you read it? You would read it, okay, this is a method. It accepts 4 parameters. It says if the purchase amount is greater than zero, then do this particular thing. Make sense? For some people, this might be very basic, but it's okay. If this is very basic for you, just try to, execute, or, just do the use case by pausing the video, take a look at these 5 options, write it on your own, and just comment on the video that, you were able to make it. For those of you who need to understand this, it's a good start point. Congratulations, you have just written your if condition. And I hope you are doing this with me, right? All right, so that was our first if condition. How does Salesforce understand and compile this? It takes a look at the if condition. Okay, it sees what is the condition inside it. So this is the condition. Internally, it will evaluate this condition to true or false. Okay, it will evaluate this to true or false. If it evaluates to true, it goes inside this particular curly brace. If it evaluates to false, it does not bother going inside and just directly reaches here. Whatever is the next line of code, it comes here. Okay, so do you want to test it? Let's give it a test. Save. All right, how do I test it? I can use the anonymous window because the Apex is not connected to any front end, any Visual Force, Lightning Web Component, flow, trigger. I have to execute the method myself. So how do I execute it? See, this is my class name, this is the method name, these are the parameter it accepts. Correct? So I'll simply try to call this method from anonymous window. So to call the anonymous window, you can click on debug and open execute, or you can simply press Ctrl E or Command E. All right, so now you tell me, how do you execute the method? You simply say class dot method name. Why am I using the dot operator and calling the method directly? Because yes, this is a static method, right? So I don't have to instantiate my class. I can directly call the method. Perfect. Now, right now we just are worried about the purchase amount, correct? Because that's the only thing we have checked in our system. So for now, I'll keep everything else null. Null means it's empty. Okay. So I'll just keep everything null and I'll keep all the booleans false. The only flag I'm concerned about is the purchase amount. So I'll say 0. So you see, I've put 4 parameters because my method accepts 4 parameters. First one is a string. So I'll just give an empty string. Okay. Don't worry about null for now. That's okay. Empty string is the type of customer. 0 is the purchase amount. False is the is new customer flag. And the fourth flag is refund requested. Even that's false for now. Right. And I'll just try to hit this particular method and I'll say execute. So it should open up the log. And will the debug statement be executed? I have put the purchase amount as 0. So if 0 is greater than 0, is that true or false? It's false, so it should not execute this particular line. If I take a look at the logs, if I click on the debug only statement, see my log has not been printed. Okay, let's quickly change our parameters. Now the method is expecting that, okay, someone has actually made a purchase of 5500 dirhams, or let's say 5500 rupees. And let's try to execute this right now. So is 5500 greater than 0? Well, yes, they have made a purchase. And if I take a look at the debug only statements now, I see that, okay, the alert is made. Congratulations, your purchase is successful. All right, so we have been able to make our first if condition. So if you noticed, if the purchase amount was not satisfying this criteria, it did not execute this particular block. It directly went to the next code. And since there's nothing written here, that's why it did not really execute anything. Okay, now let's try to look at our next condition. So the next condition says if the user is a premium member, send an alert with a coupon code. Okay, so how do I say this? First in English. So if type of customer, see, I hope you are able to understand. If type of customer is equal to premium, send an alert with a coupon code. So send an alert, right? This is the English version. Now write this with me, and if you're able to write it yourself, amazing. So if type of customer equal to, so if you have to do a comparison, right, you need to put double equal to. Single equal to will not make sense. Single equal to is for assignment. Okay, double equal to means you're trying to compare two values. So if type of customer is equal to premium, all right, I can remove the English line now, and I can just align this behind similar to how it is aligned for the previous if condition. All right, so what I want to do, I want to say system.debug, thank you for your purchase, here's your coupon for a 40% off. All right, great. We have been able to write our system.debug, and let's try to now save it. So now that I save it, there are some errors that are showing up. Okay, I wanted to show you the errors. You see what I've done is I've said if type of customer is equal to premium. Looks fine, right? But this is a string value. It's a text literal. It's a literal, right? You're trying to compare a variable with a value. So the value has to be enclosed within single quotes. That's how Salesforce understands. Okay, this is a string literal. This is a text. Now if I save it, this line won't be an error anymore. Okay. That's one thing, but still that does not complete or resolve all our errors. If you see, the system.debug looks funny here, right? If you see this string that we put here is all colored into a red or an orange color. But here, if you notice, the color is still only till here and this is in black. Why is this so? It's because I've used a normal single quote in my text. And according to Salesforce, I started the single quote and it ended here. So it's not able to understand what has Imanshu written all of this. It does not make sense. So it's not basically compiling this particular line. What I want to do is I want to escape this particular single apostrophe or single quote so that Salesforce understand this is part of the string. And if you see, if I put a single backslash, it understands that this is a apostrophe that he has used in his text, and this entire thing is one particular string. And now it is all purple or red, whatever this color is, right? Red or orange. So I'll simply say save now. Okay. Now let's look at things getting interesting. So now your customer, let's say, is regular and he has done a purchase of 5500. You tell me, let me just increase the width of this particular section. You tell me which debugs would run, right? Just basically understand. So the customer type is regular and the purchase amount is 5500. So once it comes in here, it says 5500 is greater than 0. True, it will evaluate this particular line. It will continue its journey. It will come here. Type of customer equal to premium. Is it equal to premium? No. So it will not go in here and it will just come down here. So it will only print the first debug log. Let's give it a check and let's see. So only the first log should be printed. The second log should not be printed. So the first log is printed. Okay, let's try to change our input parameters and you will see the if condition working in action based on the parameters that are given. Okay, now I'll make this a premium user. Now you tell me how many debug logs would be printed? Two, right? It will go inside this block and it will also go inside this block. Let's see. So you see both your logs are getting printed. Perfect. Let's continue our journey understanding the remaining ones. If you have gotten a bit of an idea, try to execute the third, fourth, and fifth yourself. Okay, pause the video and execute it, and then you can just see my result and your result. So if the user has signed up, send an alert for a welcome bonus. So how do I do this? I say if user has signed up, which variable tells me that it is a new user or user has signed up? This particular variable, correct? Is new customer. So I'll say is new customer equal to true. So you see I'm matching the variable based on the data type it has. Okay, save. All right. This tells me that this is a new customer. So if it is a new customer, I want to print system.debug, welcome to our company. Here's welcome bonus. All right, let's save it. And then what is the fourth one? If the user has requested a refund, send an alert for customer satisfaction. So if the user has requested a refund, right? So how do I check that if the user has requested a refund? If refund requested boolean flag is true, correct? So I'll choose this variable. If this is equal to true, I'll say system.debug. Sorry for the quality. Please fill out this survey for us to assist you better. Save. Okay. What's the last one? If the user has done none of them, don't send any alerts. So if you notice, I don't have to really do anything about the last one because these conditions will only execute if one of them is true. So if the user is none of them, it will never go inside this if conditions and directly reach here, meaning it will never print anything. Correct? So we really don't need to do anything for the fifth one. Perfect. Let's now give it a test. So if I now remove the premium, make this 0 and keep both of them false. So this is a scenario where the user has not done any of them because none of the if condition will be evaluated to true. Let's go ahead and say execute and let's see how the debug shows. Will there be any debug logs? No, because none of the if conditions executed. Perfect. Let's try putting a true here. Okay, and let's execute. So this time it is a new customer, so you should get a welcome bonus. So let's see welcome bonus. Yes, we have a welcome bonus. What if they requested a refund? Okay, so it was a new customer and they also requested a refund. Let's see execute. So now you should get a welcome bonus welcome, and then you should also get a customer satisfaction sorry message. So you see welcome and sorry for the quality. All right. Now, one interesting thing to note or understand is Boolean flags, right? Boolean flags don't need a equal to operator to be compared because this value will either be true or false. So you don't need to tell explicitly to compare it to true or false. Even this will work. You don't have to tell it explicitly. So even this will work. So I'm just trying to save it. You see, this is saving up fine. So if I now mark this as false and this fourth one as true, I should just get the sorry message because refund requested is equal to true. So if you see the debug logs, you see I'm getting the sorry message, which means this refund requested is equal to true. So if true means it will go inside. You don't have to explicitly tell it equal to true. All right. It's not that it is not the right, this is incorrect, but you don't have to write that additional line of code. You can simply use the Boolean flag as is for true or false. Okay, great. Now you may ask me, Himanshu, why are all of these blocks executing? Because Salesforce executes every code line by line, correct? So since it executes everything line by line, it is first looking at the if condition that you have put in the first line. Okay, if it is true, then it goes inside, correct? After it is done, it reaches here, comes outside. Okay, then it executes here, goes inside, goes inside, finally reaches the end. Correct? Why does it go inside every time? Because I've given plain if conditions, right? These are all independent if conditions. What does this mean? This means if A happens, do this. If B happens, do this. If C happens, do this. If D happens, do this. Correct? But what if I had a scenario wherein I was asking if A happens, or else B happens, or else C happens? Do only one of those things. Correct? Let me give you an example. Let me just check the second example. Okay. Write a method that alerts you based on the schedule it is. If it is 9 a.m., it is breakfast. If it is 10, it is tutorial time. It is 1 lunch time, 4 p.m. tutorial time, 6 p.m. dinner time, 9 p.m. sleep time. And if it is none of these times, it's free time, enjoy. Okay. Now this is a requirement you have. What you can do is you can use the same if condition logic, right? But see, understand this. There's a difference between this scenario and this scenario. In this scenario, you might have made a purchase and you might also be a premium member, correct? You might have signed up, but you might have also done asked for a refund. You might be a premium member and you might have requested for a refund, which means your code, your if condition should be independent of each other, right? If this one runs, it might be possible that the second one will also run. It might be possible that if the first one is true, the third one is also true. So you need to give them two debug messages, correct? However, in the second use case, if it is 9 o'clock, will it ever be 10 o'clock? No, it will always be 9 o'clock, right? Because it is a time thing. It will always be one of these instances. It cannot be multiple. Do you agree to this statement or not? Right? So if it is 9 a.m., it will never be 10 or 1 or 4 or 6 or 9. It will always just be 9 a.m. Correct? So in this case, what we can do is I'll just introduce another method and we'll write this particular method and we'll try to run it. Public static void handle my schedule. All right. And for now, I'll simply take integer, right? 9, 10, 1. I'll just take an integer variable, integer time in hours. Okay. So now if I were to write it, how would I write it? I would say if time in hours is equal to 1, system.debug. Sorry, we'll start with 9 a.m. If time is 9 a.m., we'll say it's breakfast time. Okay. And based on what we learned, we would have written like this. If time in hours is 10 a.m., it's tutorial time. All right. And we would have continued writing our code like this. Understand this. In this particular scenario, it is always sure that only one of these conditions will execute at a single point in time. Correct? There is no chance that two of the conditions will execute at the same time. Correct? So in such scenarios, what you can do is you can use a if-else if ladder. So instead of writing independent individual if conditions, you will simply say if the first one is true, go ahead and print the log. Else if the second one is true, go ahead and print the log. Okay. Else if the third one is true, then go ahead and print the log. Else if the fourth one is true, go ahead and print the fourth log. And you can put else if conditions for all your nodes, for all your decisions. Okay. So I'll just get rid of this particular line for now. I'll just explain you how the if else if ladder works and I'll save it. So let's first of all see if the syntax is correct or not. So the syntax is correct. All good. What I've done is I've said the first condition, if this is true. So if this is not true, what do? I go ahead and check this. Else if is this true? No, even this is not true. Oh, okay, then let's check if this is true. So if this is not true, else if this is not true, else if this is not true, else if this is true. Ah, okay, this is true. Go ahead and execute it. Don't worry about anything else. Just go ahead and execute this particular bit. All right. So if the first one is true, it will never go ahead and check all of these remaining things. If all of these are false, then it will reach here and try to see, okay, is this true? And only then it will execute it. It will not execute all the blocks, similar compared to how it was executing the previous in the previous scenario. In the previous scenario, all of the blocks were independent if conditions, independent if clauses. Here, you have one if else if ladder and only one of the conditions can be true at a time. Okay, so what happens? How does Salesforce evaluate this? Let's quickly take a look. I'll just say execute. I'll take my second method and here it is only one parameter. So I'll just go ahead and say time in hours should be 9. Okay, so I'll say execute. So what should it run? It should give me its breakfast time because 9 o'clock is the first if condition. Correct? So let's see, it's breakfast time. Perfect. Let's go ahead and say 16. Execute. It should be Salesforce makes sense time. right? So let's go ahead and say debug. It's Salesforce makes sense time. So you see, it's not printing you all the logs. Why? Because the conditions are not true. And even if it is able to print this particular block here, okay, yeah, that's fine. So even if it is able to print this block here, it's completing its execution. It's not going to the next clause. It's directly reaching here, right? So when it came in with time in hours equal to 16, let me show you how it ran. Time in hours equals 16. This was the condition that we gave. So it came in here, it checked if is time equal to 9. No, don't go inside, continue. Is it 10? No, don't go inside, continue. Else, is it 13? No, don't go inside, continue. Is it 16? Ah, yes, it is 16. Go inside, execute, forget about everything else, reach here directly. So it did not execute these lines. Does that make sense? So that is the meaning of if else if ladder, right? And you understand the use case, right? When it will be used, when you have independent mutually exclusive conditions, you simply go with if else if ladder, right? If only one of them is going to be true, then you don't have to run all the if conditions. But if there's a possibility that multiple conditions might be true, you have to go with a plain if condition. All right. Now finally, what you also have is if none of these times are there, it's free time, enjoy. So there's a variant with this particular if else if ladder. You can either say if else if else if else if and end it like this, or if none of this is true, you can also use one more block, that's your else block. Okay, if none of this is true, what do you want to do? You want to say the system that it is free time. So you can do that by creating a general else block. Let's go ahead and try to save it and see if it saves fine. Okay, and now if I go ahead and try to execute and I put something like 17, so none of the conditions will be evaluated, so it will go to the else block and it will tell you this is your free time, go ahead and enjoy. Perfect. All right, so now you might ask me, Himanshu, what if I want to just keep if condition? Yes, you can simply keep an if condition. None of this is mandatory. That's one variant. Okay, you might ask me, Himanshu, what if I want just two conditions, one in if condition, one in else condition? Yeah, okay. So go ahead and try to remove all the else if conditions. So even this is fine. This works fine. So if this is true, do this, else do this. Okay. And if you want multiple conditions, you can use the else if ladders. So if this is true, 1, 2, 3, 4. If none of this works, okay, go ahead in the else block. And then you might also ask, Himanshu, is the else mandatory to write? No, it is not mandatory. You can also just keep if and else if blocks and save. Even that works. So all of these combinations are available. All right. So I hope you are able to understand the if condition and you are able to understand conditionals in general. This is how conditionals will work. And I'm currently just using system.debug, but this is where you will write your logical code, right? For business use cases. So if this is true, then I want to do this. If this is true, I want to do these 5 things. So in these blocks, you will write that code. Okay, so that was all about the if condition. Next, let's talk about the switch case. So switch cases are another way of writing conditionals. So you saw the if condition, right? What we'll do is we'll simply take the same example and try to use it using the switch syntax. It's the same thing, it just gives you a different kind of way of writing it. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and create one more method, and this method will be called public static void handle my schedule in switch case. If you notice, see my naming sentence case, right? Always try to make sense of what you're writing and always keep it in the best practices sentence case. Okay, here again I'll take integer, time in hours, save. Let's try to save it first. So you now understand the if condition, correct? Similarly, you can use a switch condition. Switch is like what? Switch is basically if it is on, turn on the light. If it is off, turn off the light. So you understand the switch, right? If it is 5, do 5 push-ups. If it is 15, do 15-minute plank, right? So switch. between this or that or that. So those conditions can be put in the switch conditions. So you have different cases. I'll explain you how. So to write a switch statement, you have the switch keyword. You see this turned purple. It's a keyword. Okay. So you'll say switch on time in hours. All right. So I've just written the syntax of the switch statement, right? So how does the switch statement look like? You have to write the keyword switch and you have to tell which variable do you want to switch your decision on, right? So you'll say switch on. What is a variable? It's time in hours. That's what you want to switch your behavior, correct? So switch on time in hours. It starts and it has to execute all of this, right? Now out of this, which one will it execute? It will execute whichever matches the criteria. Again, similar to the if else conditions. Correct? So it is seeing time in hours. So when it is 9, it will execute this block. When it is 13, it will execute this block. When it is 16, it will execute this block, and so on and so on. If none of the blocks execute, you have a else block. When else. So none of this is true. For all of those times, run this particular block. All right. So this is how a switch condition looks like. I'll quickly give it a test, and I'll try to say conditionals in Apex, and I'll just try to hit it with, let's say, 16 first of all, which is a valid use case. So it should tell you it is Salesforce make sense time, right? So it's Salesforce make sense time. All right. What if I try with something, let's say, which is not in the radar, which is something like 19? It will tell me, it will execute the else block and it will tell me it's a free time, enjoy. Free time, enjoy. All right. Now, there might be a scenario that you would want to execute multiple blocks, right? So in that case, what you can do is, for example, what we had in our previous use cases, if it was 4 p.m. and it was 10 a.m., it was Salesforce make sense time, correct? So we had to write else if, correct? What you can do here in switch cases is you can simply separate your conditionals with a comma. So you can simply say, if when it is 10 o'clock or it is 16, I want to execute this particular line. Okay, so it will check if it is 9 o'clock, okay, run this. If it is 13 or 1 p.m., run this. So if it is 10 a.m. or it is 4 p.m., then run this. So that is what it means. So you can segregate your same section or same block of code that you want to execute for multiple decisions or multiple criteria. You can segregate them by a comma if both of them have to execute for the same requirement. All right, so if I try to now execute and I set 16, this will execute the same block, which is right here. So it will tell you it's Salesforce make sense time. Okay, and if I try to put 10, so the same block will execute because it still is in this particular switch case. This switch case here. All right. So this is how you'd write the same thing that you've written in the if else if ladder, you can also write in switch cases. Okay, it's up to you how you choose to use your understanding of the switch case or the if else if condition. They pretty much behave the same way, and if you have isolated conditions that you want to write, you can use a switch case. If you have, let's say, a very complex functional or operator based logic like this and this should be true or this should not be true, in that case you might want to go with the if else if ladder. Okay, when we understand the next bit of our curriculum, which is and or not the operators, it will be clear that okay, you would more use the if else if ladders than the switch case. Switch case is only good for very straightforward use cases. Okay, when each of the use cases are mutually exclusive, meaning one and the other are completely independent and only one of them will execute, then it is very helpful. Okay, so this is how you would write your switch case on managing your time. What I would encourage you to do is I would encourage you to write this particular method, right? Considering that each of these items would be independent. Okay, so if you consider each of these items as independent, how would you write it as in the switch condition? All right, just give it a try and let me know how it goes. All right, so I think that was all what we had on the conditionals in Apex. What we'll do next is we'll start with operators in Apex.